Let's talk to the sellers. What I'm about to tell you is not going to be the favorite thing that you want to hear. But if you stay with me to the very end, you're going to see that it's going to be the best case scenario for you in this current market condition. So for some context, let's first talk about where the market has come from and where it's currently sitting and where we anticipate the market is going. So for the majority of 2022, the market experienced what is known as an inventory crisis. Due to government overreach and socio-political, economic, unconstitutional decisions, people from all over the world decided to leave where they currently lived and move somewhere else, South Florida being one of the most hottest places around. As a result, demand was at an all-time high, which drove prices to an all-time high. All while this is happening, interest rates at an all-time low, creating extreme demand in the marketplace. Because the demand was so high, so few people could actually compete. And when that happened, sellers, while excited to receive the highest offers that they could ever imagine on their property, were reluctant to go under contract and sell because they knew that on the other side of the transaction, when they actually sold and left, they had nowhere else to go. Even though the interest rates were so low, there was no inventory. And so the inventory caused a bottleneck on both the buyer side and the seller side of the equation in 2022. Well, now here we are at the end of 2022, heading into the new year, and we have a new set of challenges. Interest rates have skyrocketed from about 3% at the lows to where they're currently sitting at about 7.5%, which is a tremendous hike in a very short period of time. The interest rate hike has completely spooked buyers out of the market and back onto the fence, causing many of those prospective buyers to go back to their landlord and renew their leases. By the way, when that happens, rental rates go up. Something to think about if you're a renter. And so now, as demand continues to diminish, and as interest rates continue to go higher, and as inventory continues to come back into the marketplace, we are starting to see more and more sellers come to terms with the reality that the once extremely high and frothy prices that the market brought just 6 months ago have become a complete illusion. Most experts agree that today's home prices are much more close to what properties should be valued at, fair market value, actualized valuations of a consistent and balanced real estate economy. And so sellers, here's what I want you to think about. If you are considering selling your property, and if you understand that your property is no longer going to sell for the all-time highs, like how it was in mid-2022, there's a couple of questions that you should be asking yourself. How much then is my property really valued at? Also, you should be asking yourself, why are we considering selling? Is there something happening? Is there a liquidity event? Is there a major life event, like the birth of a child or a job promotion and transfer? These two major questions are going to help you arrive to your resolution much sooner than later. And so if you are that seller and your why is the first major reason as to why you're considering to sell anyway, then the very next step that you should take is meet with a top performing realtor, because when they meet with you, not only are they going to demonstrate to you a world-class level of professionalism and service, but they also will showcase to you a marketing strategy that's going to help you get top dollar for your property in this difficult market. Now, one of those things that top performing realtor will do is that they are going to require, not suggest, require upfront to order an appraisal on your property. Generally speaking, the appraisals are not very expensive. And in most cases, the realtor usually absorbs the cost of the appraisal up front. That's pretty fair, considering the realtor is working hard to earn your business anyway. And so what does ordering the appraisal do? It removes the guesswork out of the way. It removes the emotionalism and presuppositions of what you thought your home might sell for. And this is a hard truth that everybody has to always come to, because the fact is, the property is only valued at what somebody is willing to pay for it. And so when you remove your personal opinions, and when the realtor removes his personal opinions, and then you get a third party in the door to actually use his strategic analysis to price point your property, then everybody can arrive to the same conclusion and understand and know this is what the property is currently valued at. And now we can arrive to find out how much the property would actually sell for. And then finally, we can adjust a calculation and know that after taxes, fees, loan balances, etc., how much cash the seller will actually net after the sale. And so now look what we've done. Number one, we've addressed the need or the want to sell. Number two, we removed all of the gray area around how much the property's actually worth. Number three, we've arrived to a final dollar amount of how much cash the seller's actually going to walk away with, and that cash amount is going to help the seller understand what they're going to be able to do next. And now, here's the fourth step. Now that we have all those numbers in place, knowing what we know about the information I just gave you on expectations from the buyer of what they might be able to get back in seller concessions in terms of percentages from the seller towards the buyer's interest rate buy down, what we can now do is take that appraised amount, let's just pretend it's $700,000, and we can offer to our prospective buyers up front in the listing description that the seller is willing to contribute up to 2 or 3% towards the buyer's closing costs to buy their rate down. And so if you do the math on a $700,000 home, 2 or 3% is $14,000 or $21,000 cash towards the buyer's rate buy down. This strategy gets the seller from 0 financed buyers to many financed buyers. So instead of sitting around and hoping and praying for that one magical cash buyer who loves your one property over the other plethora of properties that are on your block that they could choose from, plus with the Fed continuing to rise rates on you, those are your enemies, by the way, if you're a seller, you now create a new possibility and open the door to a multitude of financed buyers who could not afford your home at 7%, but now they can afford your home because the rate buy down brings them down to 4 or 5%. Do you see that? And so, what your realtor should then do is calculate the net sales proceeds, so whatever dollar amount that you ended up with after commissions, fees, taxes, loan balance, etc., that dollar amount now gets reduced by 2 or 3% because that is what you're willing to give to the buyer to help them lower their interest rate. Now, if you're being reactive and you're a seller, it's because you probably haven't calculated the net proceeds yet. And I understand that because my first reaction is, well, I don't want to have to pay for them to get a lower interest rate. They should be able to pay for that and get their own low interest rate. The fact is, if you're a seller and you're not doing that, guess what? There's a multitude of other sellers who know better that are. And those are the properties that are being moved through the inventory. Think back again to what is your why. I am 99% certain that if you meet with a top realtor and he helps to walk you through an appraisal, a net sheet calculation, and then discusses with you the possibility of offering 2 or 3% back towards the buyer's interest rate buy down, that if you see the net dollar amount back to you, then you will most likely be happy with the amount of cash that you will receive back from the sale, and that will ultimately enable you to do what you need to do next. Remember, the real estate market over the last 10 or 15 years or so has went straight up, especially in South Florida, skyrocket. So it's very likely that if you purchased a home sometime within the last 5 years or more, that there's a tremendous amount of equity in your home anyway. And that equity will allow you some wiggle room on the deal. And so you're probably sitting there wondering, this sounds too good to be true. There must be some type of caveat. Is there? Yes. After the buyer negotiates cash from the seller and uses the cash to buy down the interest rate, that interest rate buy down only stays in effect for either 3 or 2 years of the duration of the entire loan. Let me clarify. Let's say, for example, interest rates are currently trading at 7%, and your realtor masterfully negotiates an interest rate buy down by using 3% of the purchase price and uses the proceeds then to buy your rate down. For simple math, let's just say the rate gets bought down by 3 points. 7 minus 3 is 4%. In this realistic scenario, and it is realistic, you, the buyer, your interest rate is locked in at 4% for the first year. The second year, it goes up to 5%. The third year, it goes up again to 6%. This is what is known as, in the mortgage and realtor industry, as a 3-2-1 buy down program. The first year, your rate gets dropped by approximately 3%. The second year, it increases to 2%. And the last year, 1%. The idea is that sometime over the next 3 years, mortgage rates should drop lower than where they are now. If that is the case, then the buyer then has the opportunity to refinance at a lower interest rate. In a perfect world, that makes a lot of sense. But in the real world, it's very possible that the buyer could be on year number 3 at a 6% interest rate, and 3 or 4 years from today, interest rates could very possibly well be higher than where they are right now, which then takes away the opportunity for you to refinance at a lower rate. So there's some speculation there, and nobody knows which direction rates are going, and most certainly nobody knows where they're gonna be 2 or 3 years from now. It's impossible to know that. And so it is the buyer's responsibility to have a complete and clear understanding of what their monthly budget is and if they can in fact afford that particular purchase at the highest rate within that scenario. Don't measure your monthly payments off of the lower rate. That's the convenience just to get in. Beware that over the next 2 years, the rate's going to step up by 1% and you're going to have to cover the monthly payment. And so, what if interest rates drop down from 7% back to 5%? Well, that would be a good thing. And then of course, the buyer could refinance at 5%, lock in a fixed rate for 30 years down the road. And so there's some speculation there that the buyer needs to know. If you're the seller, it's completely irrelevant to you unless when you sell, you are seeking to acquire financing on your next purchase. And so, does the 3-2-1 or 2-1 rate buy down program make sense to you? I could tell you that as of right now, it's the only option that's affording financed buyers home purchases in the current marketplace. It's really just going to come down to the buyer's comfort level to speculate on where interest rates are going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. Some people say that they're going to skyrocket. Other people say that it's going to come back down. Some people say it's going to stabilize. What do you think? And so if this makes sense to you, or if this doesn't make sense to you and you want to talk more about this, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody who you think will benefit from it. As always, I wish you many blessings.